Whose Turn Is It Anyway is excited to announce that we are helping to organise and sponsor the much-loved Devon Board Game Weekend at the Fox and Hounds Hotel in Eggersford near Exeter. This event begins on Friday the 8th of November until Sunday the 10th of November. For more details about the event and where to get your tickets, please check out the show notes and we'll direct you to where you need to go. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to the Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast. We're a podcast about our gaming group and, of course, the board games that we play. Today, I'm with Davey.
Hello.
JP.
Hello.
And I'm your host for this expansion episode. My name is Adrian. We are fresh back from Essen SPIEL 2024. This is part 1 of 2 of our Essen trip and the 5 days or so we've spent over there and everything we've seen and experienced. So we've got a few hours for you this episode, and we'll have a few more hours for you next episode about the second half of our trip. So before we get started, how are we all doing?
Just got loads of energy and I'm just raring to go. Oh no, that's complete bullshit.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why are you lying to us, JP? Why are you lying to us?
So yeah, no, I'm exhausted, like probably you guys are, and everyone else who's just got back from Essen. So I mean, we got back last night. So this is raw, but we wanted to kind of do this while it's fresh. So we kind of bring everyone into the Essen experience of why is everyone an octave lower, Yeah.
Why does everyone keep coughing? Oh no, we'll edit that out. But everyone is coughing.
A few coughs in just for authenticity, but it's all good.
I mean, we were all back 11:30ish last night. It was about that time, wasn't it? It was minutes apart from getting back in the house, and it was I'm feeling it today. And I was smart enough to book a day's holiday.
You were.
So God knows how you guys are doing.
Activate smug mode, Adrian.
I know. It's not. I would have booked the time off if I had any more time left. That's the problem. I had no more time, so I couldn't book those extra days. So I just had to kind of grin and bear it today.
I would have done, but my boss is a horrible person, and I know
you're your own boss, JP.
He's horrible. He's evil. He keeps making me work. Don't like him.
You wouldn't want to spend 5 days with him, let alone any longer. Right, so shall we get into it? Right, so shall we talk about our trip over to Essen? Who wants to go first? What were our trips like on the way over to Essen this year? Because last year we caught, we were in a car together, right, all of us. This time we split up and went our different ways to get there.
We did. Last year we were clever enough to book a chauffeur called JP.
He was very enthusiastic and really wanted to drive 11 hours.
Hey, I said I would have driven some, but you didn't want to put your car into the responsibility of me. But yeah, so my trip was eventful. So I got a train with Paul Grogan. I was his tag along because he sorted everything out, which meant I had to do very little on the admin front of the train. And he just kind of went, here's your tickets. Let's go get a train, which was nice of him. So we travelled up, and first of all, the train journey up from Devon to London was great. So on the journey up to London, we played a little roll and write called Postmark Games. And the first one we did was like a diving one, which Aquamarine. And basically what you do is you have a limited supply of oxygen. You have to start from a certain boat and you roll a dice, and then you pretty much have to go draw a rectangle or square of that amount. But if you pick the higher value, because you roll 2 dice, you lose an oxygen. And then also as you go deeper, you lose more oxygen. And it's about diving through certain combinations as roll and writes, and if you run out of air you can do another dive, and you've got 3 total. And then there's like a day and night timer that goes around as well, so certain bits of the dive you have to do at night, certain bits you have to do in the day. So it was actually quite a really good roll and write. We played that on the journey up. Lovely. Then we went from London to Brussels. Had a little bit of a wait, but it wasn't too bad. Got on the train to Brussels. Lovely. Then we got to Brussels and we got the first train. And as soon as we hit Germany, this is where the problems started to arise. So usually I think, and I might be wrong, you can get a train directly to Essen from Brussels. They must have work going on or something or other, but they didn't even tell us through the ticket that there's work going on. So we just had to kind of make your way there. If you Google anything, none of the trains come up. There was an app that Paul eventually had, which was the only true source of information. And we basically had to transfer like 4 times with our 2 suitcases each. And yeah, it was absolute chaos. And we did arrive 15 minutes earlier than we were meant to. But yeah, it was fun and games. I think if we were able to get from Brussels straight to Essen, it would have been an absolute doddle. But also with Brexit and the whole customs thing, having to show your passport. The last time I got the Eurostar, didn't have to do that. Now you've got the whole... It's like you're flying on a plane, you know? You have to queue up, get your bag scanned, do a double passport check. So, yeah, I don't think I will do the train again. I mean, I'm never say never. I think if the Brussels to Essen train, like direct line is there and that is a thing, then I probably would. But without that, I probably would say no, I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, it's a long way and a lot of faff with.
But Paul's great company, at least. Yeah, we had a great time. It kind of flew by in that sense. We got to play, you know, some. Well, in fact, on our journey there, I think that's all we played was the 3 or 4 different versions of the Aquamarine, but we just kind of kept giving that a go. But time flew by, really, in that sense.
He took you under his little wing, didn't he? He went, "Come here, Davey."
Yeah.
And actually, just keep me company.
Yeah, this.
I don't want to do this on my own.
He said, do you want to go on an adventure? And I said, yeah. And then off we went. It was like Lord of the Rings.
Off you go, Hobbiton.
Yeah.
I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah. He's my Gandalf.
The board game Gandalf. That's Paul Grogan, bless him.
Yeah, so yeah, it was good. It was good. Well, it was good fun other than the million transfers.
Fair enough.
How about you guys? How did you get there?
Well, I was chauffeured, so it was great. Chauffeured all the way there. Chauffeured on a plane.
Oh, you hired a chauffeur this time?
I hired one in the name of Adrian. So yeah, Adrian was very kind to.
You say all the way there. All of the way there was to Birmingham Airport because
Yes.
we then flew from there.
Still, that's 2 and a bit hours. So yeah.
Yeah. The journey wasn't too bad on the way there.
Absolutely fine.
On the way back was different, but we'll talk about that later. And
you've got a new Tesla. It does all the driving for you, doesn't it?
not quite. You're not allowed to do the self-drive mode in England. They've disabled it. It's illegal to do it. So I can't do self-drive mode with the Tesla. But it was nice. It was comfy. Glad I had it. Got parked up. We parked in car park 7, which is the furthest away.
Yep.
And got the little shuttle bus to the airport. Flew across. Wasn't too bad. The intention was to play Streets of Rage 4 on the Switch. And then turned out that the actual little controllers hadn't been charging on the side of the Switch. So we played that for 5 minutes before the battery went out.
We didn't complete stage 1.
Oh, no.
We had to get to the end of stage 1 and then like the blue one went, doo. It's like, okay.
Oh, no. It's a great game as well. It's short, but it is a good game.
Yeah. But so that was the plan, was to play that for the sort of 45 minutes you're actually up in the air where you're not ascending or descending. And then we got straight off the plane. Bags were there on the conveyor belt when we got to baggage claim. Got onto the Sky train, got to Dusseldorf, got a nice quick seat at Dusseldorf, and then went straight to Essen. Got off there, ordered Mackie D's, as is tradition now.
Yeah.
And booked into the hotel. Going there was fairly easy. It's still a long day because you have to leave a few hours before the flight and all the usual things that come with flying. So it's still a fairly long day. I think it still felt almost as long, probably not for JP, but it's almost, for me, certainly felt almost as long as when we drove there.
The train was still 11 hours, I think, and you guys were still, 8 hours, 9 hours?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think we were 8 hours, something like that from when we left
but
to when we got there.
I was definitely more refreshed arriving
I can imagine.
That Wednesday than last year.
Yeah,
last year I was like, eyes a little bit broken and I need my sleep. Whereas this, I felt pretty good, pretty fine, pretty relaxed. Obviously buzzing because we're just arriving at Essen, and just that whole square in front of the train station. It's like all the memories are coming back. We're back in the town, back in the city, ready to have all the board game fun that is Essen Spiel. And so I was well up for it, definitely.
Yeah, so we travelled on the Wednesday, but Davey, obviously you travelled on the Tuesday, which meant that you were able to go to the press event on the Wednesday, and we had to miss out, unfortunately. Yeah. But how was that, Davey?
It was good. So I went to the press event, but I didn't go to they do like a little, not a meet and greet, but like an award ceremony. Ceremony is the right word for it at the start, and they give you all drinks and everything. But I didn't go to that because that bit's all in German, and I'm your stereotypical English, and as in I only know one language, and that is English. So I do need to work on my other languages, but I missed the German bit of that. But then afterwards this year, they had all the developers or publishers as well, kind of down in a row, or most of them, not all, I shouldn't say all, and showing off their games. I did feel some of the smaller independent developers, they had their game set up, but then they weren't there. So you could get a photo and everything, and you could see what hall it was. But I'm guessing because they were allowed in at the same time, is they were setting up their stall. So I did feel sorry for those guys, because I think the year before it was at a different time. It was maybe on the Thursday, but they had it in a completely different area because it was on the Thursday, and everyone said it was an absolute nightmare because it was in this tiny little room, really cramped. Everyone's kind of like arse cheek to arse cheek shuffling through. And they said it was an absolute nightmare. So this year we had lots of room. We got to speak to lots of different people and got a nice little feel about what's going to be going on. We also spoke to Czech Games, and they were kind enough to give us a copy of SETI. Yeah. So out of most, they were told they were allowed to give out games, but I think most of the companies and most of the developers didn't bring them there, because then it means you have to look all your game to one hall, to another hall, back to the other hall if the people didn't pick it up. So but it was only Czech Games that really brought any through. But they were very kind, and I spoke to them, and we've obviously got a good rapport with them as well. So maybe that helped, but they've given us Kutna Aura before, and we've also had Mean and Elwyn on the show before talking about Lost Ruins of Arnak. So they also had there, which we probably won't talk about again, was just a little demo board of the new expansion for Lost Ruins of Arnak. And they've got it's like a dark purpley board, and there's a new mechanic in it which is like cursed relic tiles rather than your normal relic tiles. You have these little cursed ones, and the tech tree to the side looked absolutely mental. That you go up, rather than it just kind of sprawled into its own beast by the looks of it, and it had loads of different icons that I didn't know what they meant. So that would be different. It would be interesting when they bring that out to see what they do with that.
I was a little bit jealous, to be honest.
Yeah,
you managed to do the press, because the reason why me and Adrian weren't there is logistically we kind of sorted all this out, and then we realised we got press passes after logistics had been kind of sorted and paid for and done. And then Davey with his high look stat, which looked out there a day earlier and could absolutely take advantage of that. But I'm glad one of us got to do it, because I think it's quite important for us to kind of be represented in that press event, and to also just get that kind of pre-meet and greet piece done, which is, is awesome to do, and it's how you network. And that's, to be honest, from a press point of view, that's what Essen is about. It is literally about networking, meeting these publishers, meeting these designers, meeting all these different people. And it's something I'd love for us to do more and more of as the years go on. So yeah, it's great that you did it, mate. So thank you, and also thank you for SETI, because that was on my list. Probably 2 or 3 days earlier, we jumped on and did a Essen stream with Paul Grogan again on Gaming Rules, talking about the kind of upcoming games we're excited about, and that was one I was kind of talking about. And then since then, I've been watching videos on it and just got more excited about it. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then you went, I've got a copy. And I was like, yes.
And Davey only spent a little bit of time after he got that copy playing it. It was very small amount of time.
Demo, didn't you?
Well, so I bumped into Luke Hector. I think Paul played like matchmaker because he put a little group up on Messages saying, "Oh, what are you guys up to? I'll meet you guys here." And then we both were there. And then Paul was obviously too busy in the main hall, so never arrived. So just spent the rest of the day with Luke. And then we were like, "Oh, why don't we just play SETI?" So we took SETI to the Premier Inn, got it out, learned the rules, which we did get one rule wrong. So Luke didn't do too bad of a job teaching, really, for it only to be one rule. And then off we went and played a game. And we finished one game. I thought this was great. Absolutely amazing game. Two other guys in the Premier Inn came over and said, "Oh, you playing SETI?" And we're like, "Oh, yeah, do you want to sit down? We'll play it again because we've just learned the game." Okay, cool. Sat down, played another game. JP and Adrian get to the Premier Inn about 7 o'clock, was it?
Yeah.
About 7 o'clock. And I did say to JP that I'd play some SETI with them. So I think it got a bit too late for Adrian. So
he made the smart decision.
He retired.
When I knew that the game was not going to be finished by midnight,
yeah,
I was like, there's no point in me staying up because I'll get to like 11:30 and I'll crash. And then, yeah, JP, I think, walked into the room that we were sharing, 1/4 midnight?
Yeah, just
20 past midnight?
Yeah.
I played my third game of SETI with JP that evening. So I got to see all the aliens. So if you don't know about SETI, we'll probably go over it later rather than now. But there is some, like a little secret modular mechanic with it where you're basically looking for extraterrestrial life and you find it, but you have 2 different ones out of 5. Pick 2 and you play with those 2. So I ended up seeing all of them that evening.
Spoiler's gone.
But
nothing left to spoil. I saw
it. Nothing left to spoil, yeah. But I do really enjoy that game. Definitely up there. You know a game's good when you can go, yeah, I'll play that again after 3 or 4 hours. We started playing it about 4 o'clock, I think. So the learning game took about 2 hours, and then that was a 2-player, and then I played it till 12:05.
So that was then the end of Wednesday. So I got a bit more sleep, I think, than both of you.
Yep.
And Thursday, obviously, was the start of the event. So
talking about sleep.
Yeah,
go on.
I forgot about this.
I think this is the night my bed broke. So I stayed at the Stay Hotel, which is the worst name for a hotel, because you type in Essen Stay Hotel, every other hotel on earth comes up before that hotel. It's like the place near us, like, called the pub.
Yeah.
The pub. And whenever you tried to Google it, Weatherspoons came up because it's just got more. It's got more coverage. It's got more. What's the word for it? Metadata behind it. So, yeah, it wasn't great to find, but it actually wasn't too far away from the train station. But the very first night, Tuesday night, slept like a baby. Lovely. Second night, I went to bed about 12:30. I think I got in. Woke up about 2 a.m. in like a hammock. I was like, what's going on? Why have I suddenly been enveloped by the bed? And yeah, I feel like the bottom of it just went. So I had to pull the mattress off. Well, I tried to go back to sleep for a little bit. And then, when you're so tired, you're like, I'll be able to sleep. I'll just put up with this and I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then I lay there for like an hour, and then I went, no, I can't. This is not on. So I dragged the mattress onto the floor, went to the floor, and basically didn't really sleep. Got about 3 hours sleep. Next day, I did go and talk to the receptionist, and she didn't really seem to care. I think that I was telling the truth. So then I went, as I was walking back in, I bumped into the guy that runs the place, the owner. I don't know. It was I think it was an independent hotel. And he was just like really helpful. He just went, yeah, we'll go take a look. Went a look and went, yeah, that doesn't feel right. And upgraded me into a better room, a bigger room, big double bed to myself, amazing bed and everything else. So I ended up meeting you guys a little bit later. But yeah, I slept like a baby from then on.
Yeah, it's rubbish when you don't get sleep on a day you're excited to do something and then you just don't get any sleep the night before through no fault of your own.
Yeah. Whether I was a little bit grumpy with the receptionist on 3 hours sleep, and I might have been, which might have also probably not helped, but it did get sorted. So it is a thumbs up for that hotel in the end.
I see. You don't mind if things go wrong. It's always a bit of a pain, but it's how they sort it. You know, you can usually forgive a lot of things. I think if things, mistakes happen, and it's just the way that people deal with it. And if they can deal with it and correct it, you're like, fair play. Usually.
Yeah, and plus I went from having Daniel Craig staring over me in bed to Shirley Bassey, so that's an upgrade in itself.
Goldfinger!
Exactly.
So we obviously were staying at the Premier Inn, right, Adrian? So we had quite looked into a disabled room in the fact that it's just basically a big L shape, and just kind of walking down the corridor on the 6th floor, and you see the little map, and I'm like, oh, I think we might be in the end one, because the end one's got the extra space, because it's just got surplus space it needs to fill. And so you go in, it's like a big L shape, and then shower, open, wet room, whole lot. It's great. Felt like really luxury in the end. Nice. When you usually got your suitcase and it usually gets in the way because you're trying to put it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just chucked it down the corner of the L.
I had 3 bags and had them all laid out and opened up so I could use them as I wanted to. JP had 2. He had them laid out on the opposite side of this sort of L bit that wasn't the beds. Had those laid out and all that lot. We had the table and everything. It was it was pretty nice.
Good. Yeah. Probably wouldn't ever happen again, but it's just the way it goes.
I found it strange because you're like the first people that booked, and they must have just booked you straight into the disabled.
I don't know why. I don't know why we got that room, but who questions the logic of the Premier Inn? There are higher beings that understand what happens at the Premier Inn, and it's just not us, I'm afraid. But there we go. So, yeah.
So while Davey was having his lie-in...
lie-in?
JP and myself were heading to Essen. Yeah. Day 1 of Essen.
Day 1. Beat the crowds.
Beat the crowds. So, JP, you had a exhibitor's pass.
I did.
Because you were working somewhere.
Yeah. So I had an exhibitor's pass because I was demoing at Mindclash Games. So earlier in the year, I said, if I go back to Essen, I'd like to do some demoing. And I thought, well, where best to do demoing than the biggest board game fair pretty much on the planet. So yeah, and I thought, I love Mindclash Games. Why not give a bit back? They're really good to us as a publisher, and we have a really great relationship with them, as kind of podcast and publisher. And it's just nice to kind of give a little bit back to them and get to know the team a little bit better. So yeah, I kind of arranged to do a few hours on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday each morning. I didn't want to do too much demoing. I didn't want it to be, my Essen was completely all about demoing full time, because then you don't see anything. You don't really get to kind of have a proper mooch around and do the things that we want to do. But yeah, so I was on 2 games. I was on Ironwood, which is the latest game that they are releasing. Well, that's been released right now, and people could be picking up their copies. And I think people who have backed it or pre-ordered it, those copies were being literally delivered around that time. I think my copy arrived whilst I was at Essen. So it's, literally the timing was great. So I think I demoed across Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I demoed 10 games of Ironwood, and I did 1 Septima game. And now at first on that Thursday, it's my first time demoing. So it's a bit like, oh, this is weird. This is different. And, fair play. It's always difficult to get the 10 a.m. demo slot, right? Because the gates open at 10. You get the rush, and it takes time for people to get through the herd of zombies to get to where you need to get. And then you've got to get into the queue. So you're going to get into the queue, especially for Mindclash, because they only do pre-bookings only. So you get into the queue to then say, I want a demo right now. So people, don't really start at 10 on a 10 a.m. demo. You're starting probably 10:15, 20 past 10. So we had, for Ironwood, I was demoing 2 games at the same time, which is a bit of a challenge if these people don't turn up at the same time. Because you either got to start a teach for 2 people and then redo a teach for the next 2 people, which is fine if everyone arrives at the right time, but you can bank that they won't. And of course they didn't. So it's kind of, you've got to make a call of, okay, 2 people have sat down early. Great. How long do you wait before the next 2 turn up? Or do you start and get them going as fast as possible? And time is a commodity at these things, especially when you're demoing. And quite rightly, people can get a bit, not grumpy, but they just want to get on with it. They've, pre-booked a slot and they want to play. But no, generally, everyone that I've demoed to has been really great. And there's mixtures, of nationalities and different people. And for me, it was just fantastic to demo a game like Ironwood. And for those that don't know, I've covered it on the UK Games Expo episode in a bit more detail, but it's a 1v1 kind of asymmetric, skirmishy kind of game, which you kind of race for your own unique win conditions. So as a demo, it's quite a good game to pitch 2 people against each other and have the banter across the table, so you can kind of really play into that as someone who's demoing the game. So yeah, I think by the Saturday I was a slick demoing machine because I just rinse, repeat, and
setting out to destroy relationships between people.
No, you won't be after this because you'll all hate each other. And then Septima was just quite a joy, actually. It was quite relaxed because I had 1 game, 4 people teaching the game I've played, I don't know how many times, quite a few times. And that was quite a relaxing 2 hours for me. That was, once I got the teach done, questions come in, you answer the questions and just help people along. It was nice. Just, yeah.
Did you get any rules wrong throughout the demo?
Did I get any rules wrong? I might have done on Ironwood on the early Thursday. I can't remember, but yeah, when you kind of think, I don't think that's right. And you then look for the rule book and go, nah, it's sort of right, but it doesn't detract from the demo itself, if that makes sense. It wouldn't make sense, but it would impact a game competitive nature if you were playing in that kind of way. But for the sake of a demo to get an experience of the game, it really doesn't matter. And it's for Septima, no, that's pretty straightforward. No. But Ironwood is newer. I can't even tell you what it was. It was something really small, and the rules are pretty straightforward on that. So yeah.
I was just intrigued because it happens. Everyone's human.
We've had demos of other people where it has happened, and so it's one of them things. But it's quite cool to be on the other side of the curtain. I got to wear my purple Mindclash shirt. I've got 3 of those now, so I've took them home, and I might just wear them around the house because they're cool.
He's not going to wash them.
Smell. but no, I just want to say a big thank you to the guys at Mindclash, especially like Robert, who was coordinating all of the demo staff and just making sure everyone was all good, and he was great. He was very appreciative that I was part of press and podcast, and he was very happy for me to talk about that whilst I was demoing because of the amount of time I'm doing. And likewise to Dorka and Soma from the marketing team, who are just awesome to us every time we go there. They're just fantastic, and they'll help us out with different things. And we'll talk about one of those experiences later in the show. But yeah, that's the demoing segment across all of the days done.
Across Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Nice. Well, while you were demoing, I had press pass, so I was allowed to go in a bit earlier myself. And I thought, there's a couple of games I need to grab, but what I'll do is I'll have a scout around the halls first, especially Hall 3, because we know that can get quite busy because it's kind of the main sort of Euro big publisher for like those sort of crunchy Euros and all that lot. So it gets quite busy in there. So I thought I'll have a wander around there. And there's lots of stalls still being set up and stands sort of looking good, and they're all sort of getting the demos like perfectly lined up that first day, make sure it's pristine. I'm sure by Sunday morning they were just like, oh, it's all on the table, that'll do. But Thursday they were lining up everything to make it look good. And one stand in particular stood out for me. And unfortunately, I never got a demo of it, but you could not miss Duck and Cover, which was which was Captain Games, the publisher. They had, so later on in the day, they had a guy walking around with like one of those like duck suits on, so he looks like he's riding the duck.
Yeah.
And just had a kazoo in his mouth and was just blowing this kazoo as he walked around the hall. But in the actual booth as well, they had all these tables set up. There must have been about 8 or 9 tables, but the main table was a bathtub filled with rubber ducks that they had a table over the top of and chairs round to play duck and cover. And as I say, I didn't get to play the game, but as far as presents goes, like unique presents that's going to shout out to you, that was one of them. And I did keep trying to see if there was a table free, but every time I walked past, there was a few people waiting. I was just like, I'll go on to the next stand and come back round sort of thing. So I do feel like I missed out. But even the staff were passing each other and just quacking at each other as they passed each other. And I don't know, I found it delightful that they were kind of this in character and this high spirited. And that was still going on Sunday. So I saw it on Thursday that they quacked at each other and thought that's a bit weird, but they're obviously like excited like we are. Sunday, still quacking at each other. And I was like, all right, okay, fine.
This is when you find out they've made their own code.
Possibly.
They're actually just calling you names.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah.
So did that, and then I lined up for Davey. So Daitoshi was top of my list, but had sold out of pre-orders ahead of time. So I thought, well, I'm going to get that because it seemed if it's sold out of pre-orders, it's going to be quite popular. So I queued up for that, and then it got to Sunday, and they still weren't sold out. So I felt a bit sort of a fool having queued up, but knowing my luck, I don't have the high luck stat that Davey has. If I hadn't queued up, they would have sold out. So kind of glad I did and got back, and haven't played it yet, but I opened the box today and the production value on that thing is outstanding. The rule book is like nice, thick, textured paper. There's acrylics in there, acrylic tokens, wood tokens, cardboard. All of it's nice and thick, looks really good. So I cannot wait to give it a go. And I also picked up Salton Sea purely for the reason that if you spent €90, you got a free bag and a promo. So I thought, well,
I want a bag.
I want a bag that's going to cost €5 anyway, because I don't want to carry this around in my arms. So I'll just spend the extra €30 and get Salton Sea as well, which I've been meaning to play a little while. It keeps popping up on my feed and interests me.
That's cool.
So did that? Yeah. So I'm looking forward to both of those to give them a go soon. And then Davey asked if we could go and get Civolution for him, because having had the UK Games Expo playthrough, I think he was desperate to get his hands on that game. So sat in a queue there it wasn't too long to be fair for Civolution, but by that point all the gates were open, so it was about 10 past 10. And I just thought I'll queue up for that, and that one did sell out by the looks of things. I think it was about midway through Saturday if I remember correctly, but that one sold out, so at least we got that copy there.
I think the English version sold out on Friday.
Oh, did it?
I think the German version sold out on Saturday. Yeah, there was a little error with the production though. Everyone got double farmers and no settlements, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not their fault. Yeah,
so and
they're going to resolve it.
They did warn everyone as you picked it up, please scan this QR, and they had instructions in English and German. And they said, please scan this QR code and we'll sort out. And like, if you've got any issues with the box, we know about them. We'll sort them out for you. And that was before that was basically 10 a.m. on Thursday morning. So they clearly knew about this production issue before even sort of getting there, but it'd be impossible to resolve at this point. Right. So they did highlight that. So I took a photo of that for David to sort that out as well. And then I headed across. So I kind of was a bit like, I'll have a bit of a wander, like I do with the Games Expo. I like to have a bit of a wander in and out of all the halls and have a look around. I thought I'll do that. And then while I'm doing that, I'll pick up my other pre-orders. So I get to BlackRock Games, who did Faraway last year, which if you listen to the last episode, I queued for an hour just waiting to pick up Faraway. But this time I'd pre-ordered, learnt my lesson, pre-ordered, got the Faraway expansion and castle combo. But I went to go there and the queue was huge. It was the biggest queue out of all of the ones I'd seen. It was that big. And I thought to myself, blimey, I know they're popular, like Faraway's proved popular and Castle Combos had a lot of hype about it. And they've got a few other expansions to popular games, but that queue was long. So I went there and then I went to Explorate to pick up AI 100% Human, which I'd also pre-ordered. And again, haven't played that, but I know Davey has on the train journey back. So spoiler alert, but I'll let him get to that when he's on his train journey back. But I'm really looking forward to it. And as I was walking past there, on the corner of where Explorate was a little one of the smaller stands doing demos and that for an upcoming Kickstarter or crowdfunder for I think it's War League, and they were handing out promos, like little booklets. And he sort of said, "Oh, you got a second to talk about it?" "Yeah, not a problem." He said, "Oh, you probably won't like it anyway, but here's what it is." And it has like a mini mission in it. So you cut out a few of the different bits and pieces, some tokens, and it looks like a dungeon crawler of description. And you cut out the aliens and your little people and all that lot. And it's got the basics of the rules in it with a QR code. And you can play through a demo mission of it just by cutting bits out of this booklet, which I thought was a great idea. It's only about 4 or 5 pages, this little booklet that folded in half sort of thing. So that's on the side. I kind of want to give it a go just to sort of see how it plays with this mini demo, to see sort of what you can see out of the game compared to what's on the Kickstarter page.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it sort of struck me as a bit different. Back of the Essen promo, they had a similar thing where you could cut out and you could do a demo version of, it was like a tile laying game, some gem game, and they had that as well on the back of the Essen preview. So clearly something that they've learnt from that, or sort of got an idea from, I'd guess. And then Davey said, "I'm on my way." So I headed back across and I bumped into Tom from Slickerdrips and had a bit of a catch up with him. And he already had a sort of a bag with some bits and pieces in, and just had a quick catch up. And I tell you what, he looks summery at all times, doesn't he? He's got his sort of his geek chic like Hawaiian shirt on that's always got, like, I think he had Marvel. He had like a Magneto with some Sentinels on it and all that lot. But it's all patterned up, so it looks like a Hawaiian shirt, and it's all light colours and all that lot. And every time I bumped into him, I thought, man, for the middle of October or the start of October, you do look quite summery and sort of, yeah. So I had a quick catch up with him and then headed off to catch up with Davey. Yeah,
so I think I head in and quickly devoured my breakfast, egg, or lunch, you could probably call it at that time. And then JP also had finished.
I finally got off my demo.
So great timing for all of us. We all met up, and I think we head over to Sorry We Are French, where JP picked up Shackleton base, and me and Adrian gave Dead Cells a little taster. So we had to wait a little bit, and then we got that to the table. Spoiler, we didn't enjoy it. I have played Dead Cells, the computer game, before. I don't think Adrian has.
No, I haven't played it.
I don't think JP has, but JP was queuing for Shackleton at this point, so we were playing Dead Cells. I think it could be good. So it could be good. The problem was you start off at the start, and at the start it was a very basic. You have your character with abilities. You have a dungeon very similar to Slay the Spire, or like a tile thing where you go across and pick an area that does a thing. Either you fight something or you draw an event card. The fights, they come out, and then it's got like a timer, which is basically from 1 to 4. It's like a round timer. Each one of us picks a card, except for a 4-player, one of you doesn't sit in the fight, which was like, what? Why?
Yeah,
just make it a 3-player.
That was my bit that I was like, it felt such a downer for 3 people to be getting involved in, because you're allowed to say what on these cards, right? It's got what you're going to do on the first turn, what you're going to do on the second turn, what you're going to do on the third turn, and you're allowed to discuss what you're able to do on one of the turns, but nothing else. So you get to have a bit of conversation and say, "Oh, I'm going to do some damage on the first turn. Okay, well, maybe I'll do some damage on the second turn, or maybe I'll do more damage on the first turn, or I'll pick up the loot on the third turn," or whatever it is. You get to discuss it. But whoever feels they can't go says, "I'll sit out." And if it gets to the 4th player and they say, "I can't go," that 4th player has to sit out. So there's always someone sitting out. And now they get to upgrade stuff, which is cool. But while you're having this conversation and getting involved in the fight, they kind of haven't had anything to do with it. And there's quite a few bits in this game that I thought, that's quite good. I quite like that. It's nice, simple, all that kind of stuff. But that bit was the real sort of, I felt bad because someone was always sat out, and I felt bad for the person who was sat out each time, even though I think we all took a turn out in the end. But I felt bad every time someone was sat out, and I was having a bit of a good time with the battle sequence.
Yeah, it felt out of place. It felt like they could have done that upgrade thing a little bit better. Like maybe you can sit out one round and then you get to flip, and you don't do the thing that you've played on your card, rather than I'm just sitting out the whole fight.
Yep.
But yeah, so you then do a sequence of fights, and stuff will usually play out of sequence. You'll have like an action, which is usually associates to something on your board, which you can upgrade and get better. I think mine was I gain a shield as one of my actions. So I gain a shield so I can take a damage. And then you run that around the table. But sometimes you had, I'm going to mark someone, and marks your standard thing of the next damage source does double damage. Oh, no one deals damage after the person's just marked them. Oh, and the mark's gone.
Because
is quite funny, and it's meant to kind of portray quick combat. You'll kind of make a decision within that second, and you'll fight at the same time. But I kind of felt like there was no agency to the fight. Once you played your card, you just kind of sat back. You got to talk about where maybe the damage was going, and there was some strategy there of who you're going to damage, who you're going to kill first. But then the strategy kind of went out the window a little bit, and you just play it out. But this is maybe where the demo, I think, wasn't the best. If the demo had chucked us in maybe mid-game, where you've got a load of upgrades, and you can see how combat fight is mid to late game, maybe that combat develops into its own beast, where you get lots of different weapons that can manipulate what you're doing on your cards. But we don't know. I don't know how the game progresses further. We didn't see any of it. You saw the very start, which was quite slow in a lot of aspects. It had some unique things where the souls you gain from killing the monsters, when you die, you get to spend them and upgrade. It's like a folder sheet that sits above the board.
It's like ISS Vanguard, but this
that's it. Things. But card sleeves, and then you can slot those upgrades in, and those continue over when you die to the next run. So that's the way they've done the roguelike. And I really liked that aspect of it, where the upgrades, you could just keep playing it. You're like, oh, all dead, doesn't matter. Off we go again. Bang, 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 bang. And you get to keep certain aspects and upgrades. But I think they should have thrown us into a later scenario or something without spoiling too much. I feel like they could have maybe just cherry picked some stuff to then give you a proper feel of this is what the game can do. We got just a small snippet of it, and I left with a slightly sour taste. Or it wasn't even a sour taste. It was more of just I wasn't that bothered by it.
I didn't mind the programmed combat as much as Davey did. I could tell kind of in the moment that you were sort of a little bit deflated, and I quite liked it. The idea that you could only discuss a little bit of it, that sort of restricted communication that's quite often in co-op games. Didn't mind that. And I felt like it might have been aimed at a slightly younger audience as well, or having the ability of a younger audience take part in it, because it is that we all get to have a bit of a chat and then you play your card, and if you've got a younger kid or whatever in the group, they can just make their choice and everyone else can kind of work around them as what they're going to do. So I did feel like there was maybe that part in it as well. I think for me the biggest problem is the fact that Slay the Spire is out there and is a stronger version of it, where I think certainly I don't want to say gamer, but certainly someone who's used to card building and deck building mechanics and all that kind of stuff and campaign mechanics will get more out of it naturally.
100%.
So it's competing, and it's like €80, right? So, okay, there's a bit of difference in cost, but it really feels like it's competing with Slay the Spire. And I think if you're a younger family or something like that, or you've got sort of kids who are just getting into gaming, maybe Dead Cells is probably a bit more for you. But it wasn't the most simple game either, so maybe that's not quite right. But it certainly wasn't as strong as Slay the Spire for someone who's used to deck building mechanics, campaign mechanics, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would like to play it again, and I would like to actually get my teeth into it and see how it develops. Because the fact that from what I've heard or what I've seen, a lot of people are like, it's really good. I think the demo of what they showed us is what left us feeling, and maybe it plays better at 3-player where you don't have to have someone sit out as well. There were just a couple of things that kind of put me off the game, but I would like to give it another go. JP then came back to join us, looking happy as can be with Shackleton base in his mitts. Absolutely. And we all went off, and what did we do next?
We went back into Hall 3, and we were just walking down the main kind of middle of the strip. I'm going to call it the strip because it's kind of where most people kind of go up and down that hall, because it's a massive long hall. Hall 3 is, it's just narrow and long. That's just the best way to describe it. We walked past, and I managed to clock at the left of me at Alley Cat Games. Some people had just left the table for a demo, and I said, like, lads, demo's free for this game. And I think I might have been channeling some of Davey's luck, and it just happened. Because weirdly, last year, and I think it was in exactly the same place, we managed to do the same thing for Galactic Cruise, right? With Dranda Games. And weirdly in the same place, right in the middle, Alley Cat Games, we...
the same colours and the same spots as well. So it was red and green next to each other. And we sat down, it was exactly the same, and I just got major deja vu.
This is familiar, this is weird. But the game was Ada's Dream, like I say, by Alley Cat Games. And it's one I've already backed, and I was like, it'd be quite cool to have a little taste. And we had a kind of an explanation, and I think it's fair to say, I think it's a similar theme of the Dead Cells one, where I wasn't quite sure how things are connected together even after a teach. It was kind of like, okay, there's a mechanism there in the middle. There's this kind of 4 separate areas of the board, and I couldn't quite see how it all hung together or why, or just mechanically. But I think the principle of the game, and I love the theme of the game, which is all about Ada Lovelace. And for those that don't know their history, I'm going to completely severely butcher it right now because I'm not a massive history buff, but I believe she's one of the most influential people to have created or theoretically created an analog computer back in insert old year here, probably late 1800s or early 1900s or something like that. And you play in a kind of an alternate timeline where she doesn't die young, and actually she lives a longer life, and you play as her assistants to kind of help her fulfill a dream in building this analog computer. So your player board has this, an array of discs that are kind of set out in a 3x3 grid with lots of kind of rows and columns and spaces for dice to be set. So at its heart, it's a dice drafting game, which is a mechanic I definitely enjoy in games. Coimbra and Perseverance and any others love a bit of dice drafting. It's just a fun thing. So you kind of have this... basically 2 different action types that you can do. You either take I think it's a workshop action where you move a dice from one bin to the next, and there's like a circle of circles where all these dice are grouped. I think it's 3 dice per like container, and all the different actions are kind of linked to those containers. And you can move one space for free. And the idea is that if you match or succeed the value of the dice, you can bump a different dice out into the worker kind of placement spot, and then take that action. And then you kind of take that dice and put it into your own kind of player board, your own computer board, off to the side, and happy days. And then you can do a bunch of other stuff like, play a card out your hand, which depends on the dice number that you've bumped and taken. So if you played like a 1, 2, or 3, you can play a card that has a 1, 2, or 3 at the top, and then do extra kind of action efficiencies and things like that. And you can also spend, I think it's like studies. I think they're like cute little books. Actually, the production on these little books was quite nice as well. And you can kind of bolster those actions to do all the cool stuff. And then the other action is then you can use your dice that you've acquired and slot them into your computer kind of board. And this is where it kind of gets quite interesting for me, where you've obviously got the number as one thing, which is very important, because in the column or row that you're putting this dice in, you will eventually be building these kind of cogs, these operator cogs, which have got like pluses and minuses, or at some point maybe multiplication. and you can slot those in. So if you kind of imagine a column of 3 dice with 3 different values, like, I don't know, a 3, a 4, and a 6, you'll be putting in the pluses and minuses in between them. And at the end of the game, you'll be scoring victory points for the total value of that sequence. So you probably think, well, I put multiplication in everywhere, but they're the most expensive and harder to get. And sometimes you have to put the minuses in. But if you do it right, it's not the end of the world, right? It's maybe a victory point lost or something like that. So yeah, you're kind of putting those things in. And yeah, the color of the dice that you slot will depend then on the kind of area of the board that you then activate. So there's 4 quadrants in each side. And yeah, you'll then kind of either travel around the map, you'll kind of invest in institutes, you'll go to meeting rooms and acquire new kind of people, which are the cards that you get. And also you can then develop these cogs and also, I forget what they're called, but these other cards that slot assignments slot into the bottom of your board, so that when you activate that color dice, you're then running a little engine doing different things. So yeah, it's kind of one of those kind of mid-weight games, and I do kind of like my mid-weight games, like your Lorenzos and your Coimbras and things like that.
A little bit heavier, I would say.
Now I've played it, I think when I looked at it, it felt it looked like midweight. It looked like one of those, but I think you're right. The fact that actually after a teach, I still don't know how this works.
I don't think I understood it until the very last turn, but that might have been partially the teach, as well as I only had 3 hours sleep. So it could be a combination of the two, but it is definitely an interesting puzzle. It's one I've not seen before, especially with the little cards that you slot in on that row or column that then give you like set goals that you have to get. So I think mine was I had to have all dice of the same color in a column, and they had to be odd. And then you score that, as well as the multiplications or additions or minuses within that column. It was definitely very interesting
puzzle. I think you said that you're right. The teach, I don't think, was the best in the way it was kind of delivered, and
it was a weird hybrid, wasn't it? Because some people will just give you all the rules and then let you go for it, and some people will kind of give you a guided, here's what your first turn looks like. You must follow this script. And there was a bit of a halfway house. So like, everyone's going to do a dice action first, and then everyone's going to do the other.
There's a workshop and a dice.
Placing the dice. But they didn't really tell us, oh, here's what you want to do, or here's what this means, or anything like that. Therefore, you're doing this. And I kind of get why to some extent, but it did mean that it took us, the first 2 turns took us almost too long, I felt. Whereas if you'd done scripted, and I know not everyone loves scripted, like things where you're told what to do, but I think we would have all got, especially at 4-player, because we were 3-player, and so we missed one of the zones in that teach in the start of it. But certainly at 4-player, you'd have been able to see exactly what that looks like, what every single area looks like within 2 turns. And as you say, there's some interesting bits in there. The bit you're talking about, like Davey, with the columns and all that lot, was quite reminiscent of either like a role player or something like that, where you can get gold cards that says everything on this row needs to be the same color, or everything in this column needs to be all 6s or whatever. That felt like that, but then that's tied to a much bigger drafting and trackers and all that kind of stuff. What I will say is I felt like I got enough out of it to say it's not for me. It just didn't. It felt like it was trying to do too much at once. I felt like it needed to take a couple of mechanics out of there, because there was some nice ideas in there, but it just was all, it felt like it needed like 1 zone less, or that card slotted in the bottom for the engine to be a bit simpler, or something along those lines, because it all felt like it was a bit too many things together for me personally. And as you say, like weight ratio at the moment, and these things tend to fluctuate once I get out in the public, but it's currently a 4 out of 5, so it's approaching Lacerda levels of complexity according to BGG.
Is it really? Is it that heavy?
I kind of agree with that, if I'm honest. I think it's much closer to that sort of Brass Birmingham level of kind of interactivity with everything going on.
There's a lot of moving parts. I think once they went through the actions and we understood the actions, those were quite simple, but there were a lot of moving parts on top of that, of where you wanted to go, because then you could gain this if you spent a book, or this extra action. We didn't know why to start with. I was like, why am I doing these things? I don't really know. And the the demo was really enthusiastic and a lovely person, but it felt like some of the things they didn't know themselves, and some of the rules, which I may have gotten into a slight argument about with one of the rules.
You say argument.
I don't know if that was right or not.
No, you were just trying to clarify. And
I was trying to clarify. It's because the rules said one thing on the little helper sheet, and then they told us another thing. So I was like,
but then it's
which one is it? I don't know.
You don't know if it's a misprint, it's been changed or whatever. So.
Exactly.
Well, there was definitely already misprints on there because it said, "Oh, you need this color," and that color didn't exist.
Like, there isn't a red.
So it was like, okay, all right.
But no, I enjoyed it. I
true.
think I'm keen to get a full game experience of it, and actually, if it is on that heavier weight, it probably is more aligned to my tastes anyway. Once I kind of understand the puzzle, but look, I've got a copy coming on the way anyway. I just wanted to kind of jump on the demo while it was there, and it was just one of those moments of walking past at the right time, and the table just happened to free up. I thought, sod it, let's just try it. And I think I was tired, so sitting down is always nice.
I think I'll enjoy the puzzle when I know what the end goal is. It's like if I started the Lacerda wheel and didn't know where I was going with it and fell off that wheel right at the start. Yeah, it wouldn't feel
like
good.
my play of the galleries when I first played it, which is I wasn't enjoying the first half of it because of that reason. I just couldn't see the wheel. I couldn't see where to get on and where to get off and all of that. And completely the same thing, right? You don't know.
I mean, oppositely, I felt like I knew what was going on with the game for Arda's Dream quite quickly. I felt like, okay, there's a few parts of the board I'm not quite sure on, but you could kind of see where everything was going. And I just struggled with how much there was of the game. But that was it for our Thursday in the actual halls itself.
Well, I did before we kind of wrap, I did pick up my pre-order of Nucleum Core to Progress on the Thursday as well. And and all the little promos and little things in there. I'm actually, weirdly, I'm more excited about the Patron's little deck of cards that you get. Which actually adds a bit like a unique player, I'd say a power, but also just to put the thematics on it a little bit. Because when you play Nucleum, you're like, you're Experiment A. And you're like, great. What does that mean? I'm A, you're B, and you're C. And it always felt a bit odd to me. But actually, I think originally the design always had names. I think like there's the banker and there's the scientist and there's this, that, and the other. So all of the experiment tiles and the research tiles that you play in Nucleum, they all tie back. So you can kind of go, I get it now. Understand what this is trying to do. The Court of Progress is just an expansion that adds a politics track. And I think speaking to David Terzi, there's obviously a lot of comparisons to Turmoil in Terraforming Mars, but it's basically there's similarities, but it's not a complete rehash of Turmoil, because we know it's not widely well received. Turmoil, there's a lot of people that hate it, and he's basically said it's Turmoil done right, which of course he would say. But looking forward to giving it a go though. Once I unpack it, I'm still in shrink. But there we go.
So I picked up when I walked through. I picked this up for my friend because they're avid players of Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. I picked up The Last Airbender, Aang's Destiny. And we all kind of left, and that's the first thing we ended up playing, I think. So Adrian could probably give us the better rundown.
Yeah, no, all I was going to say was that on Thursday, I think we'd all gone in going, right, okay, Thursday's the quieter day. We'll go and check a load of stuff out. We'll do a load of demos, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, Thursday happened to be a bank holiday in Germany. And it was heaving in there. I think it was the busiest of the days, if I'm honest, where everyone was trying to get to demos. Everyone was queuing for ages. And everyone was also seemed to be in the lanes at the same time. And interestingly, they had limited tickets differently this time. I think that we've had a press release since saying that it's the first time they've sold out, but that it was also the most, they designed it to be a more comfortable Essen Spiel, which makes it sound like, not confirmation or anything, but makes it sound like they limited the tickets a bit lower than perhaps they had before. And even that on the Thursday was definitely a lot busier than the previous year's Thursday, but was also fairly busy in all the halls, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even
204,000, I think they said the number was, wasn't it?
Was that what it was?
It's about that number.
Over the over the whole. I don't know if that was on the day or
200,000 was Thursday.
Felt like
yeah. If I did, it did feel like it.
So we went to go and get a bite to eat afterwards and caught up with Paul and a few people. And we had our schnitzel, as we always do, which is now tradition. Second year doing it, so it's tradition. And our apple strudel. And watched a lot of Germans get very drunk. Because, again, bank holiday. And, yeah, there was lots of trays of shots went past us, is all I'll say.
Every 5 minutes was a tray of shots just going down that end. I mean, I was kind of jealous, but not.
It was a table of like middle-aged guys and girls as well. The amount of noise and everything when you first went in, I thought there would be like, I don't know. Yeah, it was like a stag do, wasn't it? And then it was just like, oh no, it just looks like, I don't know, just your average Joes just all getting absolutely hammered in the corner with the towers of beer.
Like 4 pints in a tube kind of thing. With a big tap on, right, on the front.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, so we went there and then we played Aang's Destiny. So the Harry Potter sort of sequel, if you like, from a mechanical point of view at least. And I thought it was a good level up. It was not a lot drastically different, but what was different, I thought was definitely an improvement over the Hogwarts battle system. And certainly if you're invested in that IP, I think it'll be a great game. Again, it's kind of split over boxes, and the first couple of boxes, like the Hogwarts battle, are a bit simple. Like they're a bit too basic, I think, for most gamers. But again, if you're a family getting into it, it's a great way to teach you deck building and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my playthrough of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It does even say in the rulebook now, if you're an experienced gamer, start at box 3. Add them all in, start at box 3, and then go. But we thought we'd do 1 and 2 because we were all pretty knackered by that point anyway. So we went, you know what, something light and easy just sounds really nice. And at that point in time, it was perfect for me. It was just like, let's just play some stuff, do some cool stuff. It seems like they've simplified a lot of the artwork. I know it's completely different IP, but just the symbology. Symbology is a lot more simplified about what's there. I just found it a lot easier, even though Hogwarts battle's not hard anyway. It just, for me, it was a lot cleaner with what's going on. I liked that they had split, so what essentially would be a spell deck and then an item and a companion deck. So there's 2 different ones now. So you can kind of delve into one shop and then delve into the other shop. And that was a really cool little mechanic. They also brought out one of the house rules, which we've always been playing with anyway, where if 2 of the same comes out, we just stack them on top of each other. That's now a standard rule, which was great because it meant that the shop doesn't stagnate. And yeah, I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, I think by having the 4 elements, having to split that shop into the 4 elements is a necessity, right? But it's something that a lot of players home ruled to some form in the Hogwarts battle. Like I know that I've heard people having a separate row for allies, a separate row for spells, a separate row for items and stuff like that in Hogwarts battle before as well. So interesting that they seem to have bought quite a few house rules that they've seen online and pulled it into this sort of more streamlined version. The other bit I quite liked was that you're working through like these missions. So a bit like the Horcruxes and that in the base box of Harry Potter, spoilers, if you haven't got to box like 7 or whatever there. But you have to kind of do missions to keep advancing the deck. So before you, as well as taking out all the villains, you have to get through this. But what was interesting was it did things like once you defeated someone or once you sort of completed this mission, it added to your starter deck so that by box 3, you had a more elaborate starter deck. Rather than just sticking with that base 10 cards, you ended up with 12 cards in your starter deck, or it added stuff to the shop as the game progressed. So you knew what you wouldn't know because the deck's kind of hidden. It's a bit like it's kind of place it down as it is and then you work through it. You don't get to peek through it. There's no shuffling it or anything like that. And I thought that was a really interesting addition to this sort of storytelling on this very basic deck builder, certainly in the first couple of boxes.
Yeah, it's cool. That was my favourite bit as well. I think, I enjoyed my play of it. I don't think my face probably conveyed any enjoyment whatsoever because I had 2 pints of Hop House during the meal. We've had obviously our main and dessert. Whole environment in this place is all quite dark. It's quite dim. It's all lit by candles and it's warm. And I just felt like I just got hit by a truck. Started to feel like I'm really tired now, and I just feel like I just want to close my eyes and go to sleep. And so it just got to the point where like, can we go to bed, guys? I'm so tired.
I mean, I was really up for it. I was like, should we walk back? It's only a 45-minute walk. Let's walk back to the hotel. And you guys were like, no, absolutely not. We'll do anything but walk.
Laden with boxes of Civolution and all of the things that we've been picking up throughout the day. It's like, no, thank you. We'll get an Uber.
Get an Uber. Yeah. €8, dirt cheap. It's actually cheaper than if we all got the train.
It's true. And I think that sums up our Thursday, right?
Pretty much Thursday. Hit the sack, went to sleep.
Yeah. Woke up Friday, and nice segue because we're going to talk about walking. I fell down some stairs, basically.
Yeah.
So going down into the underground, on the German sort of underground line, going down the stairs, and I thought I'd hit the bottom step, but I hadn't. So my foot sort of twisted, thinking it was on the bottom, and thinking I had more purchase, and I didn't. And so my foot then twisted, and I went over on the outside of my foot, and I was in a lot of pain. Luckily, I fell backwards, so kept this beautiful face intact. But oh man, JP was like, just sit there because that looked like a bad fall. Just sit there. And I think in the 10 minutes we sat on that step, I think I went from sweating to shivering to feeling sick about 6 times round, just ran in circles. But eventually made it in.
Yeah, still, bravo for you were kind of trying to walk around, trying to make sure is this thing properly knackered?
Does it still work?
Have I still got a foot, or is it a stumpy thing now, or what is it? And you were walking around, and I thought, well, if you can put pressure on it, it's not a break, right? Because if it was a break, I think it would have been screams.
Not broken leg at least.
Yeah, you would have been screams, and you wouldn't be able to move, and it'll be right. We need ambulance here, stat, and let's go. And you were very adamant. You're like, I am not missing Essen. I'm not. I don't care if it's a sprained ankle. I'm not missing it. So you soldiered on, which was very brave of you, to be fair. Because
I don't know about that. Stubborn. I'll use the word stubborn because brave, I think, gives me more credit.
I was being kind.
And text Davey and said, "Can you be my walking pharmacy for a few days? Can you bring your nice drugs, painkillers and that with you?" And thankfully you did. So we had I think you turned up a little bit later, but first thing I went and saw Ice Makes Games, who are the makers of Terrorscape, a game I didn't mention long ago on the podcast about its table presence. And again, it's a hidden movement game, which I love. I don't know that all of our group loves it, or any of my groups really love hidden movement that much, but I love hidden movement. So I picked up this, and they were very lovely, and they gave us a copy to show, to sort of try and show off. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about that soon. It's basically, to me, it's a bit like Dead by Daylight or something like that. You have to leave the map as survivors before the horror killer. And I don't like horror movies, but I love the idea of this, and I like Dead by Daylight. Before the killer kind of gets you all. And there's a few ways to do that. You can run around finding keys, or you can fix the radio and call for the police to turn up, just kind of like Dead by Daylight? Friday the 13th, I think is the game, does that as well, where you can fix the radio and call the police and all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, every time you do anything worthwhile, it makes noise. And on the other side of this massive cardboard mansion that separates the two sides, the killer gets told at the end of the round where you made noise, and it kind of hints where he needs to go. I cannot wait to give it a go, because hidden movement is normally one person hiding and everyone else hunting. This is one person hunting and everyone else hiding and trying to get out. And I think I'm really hopeful and really interested in what I've seen online suggests that it's a great sort of switch up of this hidden movement thing because 3 people are hiding, and I think that would be quite a different dynamic of them trying not to talk. Whereas normally you're the hidden one and you're hearing them all talk, and if they're well off, you're having a little internal giggle, and if they're on it, you're desperately trying not to sweat because it will give the game away, right? This will be quite a different dynamic. So yeah, got to that first. Can't wait to try that. Hopefully trying that over the next couple of weeks. And then Davey turned up, supplied me with some painkillers, and we went off to go and see Weird City Games for Evergreen Canopy.
Yeah, so we had a little 2-player morning, really, didn't we?
We did. We
went round Hall 2, and there seemed to be a lot of 2 players there. And yeah, we went to go see Canopy Evergreen. Very interesting looking game. It's a follow-on from Canopy, I think it's just called.
Yeah.
So it's expanding on the Canopy game. So in the original, I think it was just a draft and push your luck. Whereas with Evergreen, you've now kind of got a little board, your own player board, where you also build the trees now. So I think there was always like kind of a rush to try and build the tree the highest. And this time you've got your own little board, which also when you build the trees in the right areas give you little bonuses as well, like bonuses that will sit out along with your set collection and add those resources into your set collection as well, and gives it scoring in the end. But yeah, really interesting looking game. There's also behind that there was March of the Ants, the new evolved edition, which looks interesting. A nice 4X, but with ants.
I like the look of it. I think I love 4X games anyway, and it's just a different theme, right? So rather than the spaceships and planets, it's ant colonies and just right down in the soil or just battling each other. Yeah, I think it's quite cool. I quite like what it's doing.
Yeah, I got a photo of it because I actually think it looks quite unique, and I've not played March for the Ants, the first edition, but the new one looks nice and shiny as it does. So something to watch out for. I think the Kickstarter's coming out soon. Fair play to them. We said, did you want to give us a game? We can talk about it. And they basically said, we're selling out so fast with Canopy Evergreen. Come back Sunday. And then we came back Sunday and they had sold out. So we didn't get a copy. We didn't get to play it, but it does look really good.
It does. And then we went on to play Fall by Little Rocket Games, which is a abstract tile laying game that strangely reminded me of Cascadia because it's hexes that you put little buttons, sort of little discs on top of, but it's not really anything like that at all. Like there's some bits and pieces, but really what you're looking is you're putting down these leaf hexes that have 3 different colours of leaf on, and you have to match at least one edge. And inside on the points of some of the hexes are a part of a coloured flower. And you're also going to get these discs that have animals on top of it. And you've got your secret objectives, and it will say, okay, you need more yellow birds than red birds, or you need to have your foxes in this pattern, or you want more, pink flowers are worth 3 points. Blue flowers are worth 1 point, and then someone else, because it's a 2-player game, someone else will have a different set of secret objectives. So you're competing against each other in a sort of abstract tile laying game. And what will happen is there are 4 sets to set out to start off with. So a hex and a disc with an animal on it. And there's 4 sets of those. The first player drafts the first one, puts it out. Second player drafts the second set, puts that out, then the third set and puts that out. And then finally the first player goes back and drafts the last set again. And so you can place it, and the thing is to place it so that at least one side of the leaves match. But what you can also do is you can stack them on top of each other. Like you can stack up to 3 layers thick, and you push off what's previously there. So if red birds are winning and you want the yellow birds, you can get rid of red birds by just stacking stuff on top of it and then putting your yellow, and you've now got a 2-point swing. So lots going on there. There's frogs as well, which block you completely. And I knew that this was going to be a Davey game that he would love, when it was like, and you can just put frogs down that block stuff. They don't really do anything. They just block things. And of course you can put them on at higher levels or whatever.
Yeah, you can stack your tiles as well and put them over top of other people's. So,
but you can't do that with frogs, right? So frogs block you from stacking tiles. And there's mushrooms as well. So mushrooms go down and they kind of block being stacked on top of, but they actually score you points because every mushroom you get out, depending upon what height of leaf they're on, they're worth more points. So really fun, interesting, abstract game. Actually, really liked it. And yeah, Davey, you picked up a copy.
Yeah, I got a copy. I really enjoyed it as a 2-player. It has enough depth for me to keep going back to it, I think, but also it's so simple that you could probably teach someone in 5 minutes, if that.
Well, I did. So David was trying to work out, can we have a bit of discount or what can you do for us on this? Of course, that someone else came over while I was sort of packing up a bit of the game and asked about it. I think because we had a logo on our T-shirts, assuming I was a member of staff. And I did say to them, look, I'm not a member of staff, but while he's busy, let me show you how it's played. Played it. And then at the end, they were like, oh, so what variability is there? And I was like, oh, let's have a look at the secret cards. And they were kind of like, so do you not work here then? I was like, no, just thought I'd demo the game while the guy running the stand is busy. And they're like, oh, okay. But having played it once, you could teach it in like 5-10 minutes, no problem whatsoever.
Good. That's a good sign of a game.
Yeah, and it just seemed fun, like trying to work out what missions the other person had. So I had to have birds higher than I had to have the red birds, or no, yellow birds higher than the blue birds.
Red birds.
And Adrian had the opposite, the red birds, and then Adrian had the opposite. And so we were both kept trying to screw each other's birds over, and you slowly start to work out like, yeah, I think Adrian wants the red birds out, and I was obviously had the yellow ones, which I thought were insects for ages, because I thought, oh, the insects need to be above the birds. That makes sense somehow in my mind. And then I was like, oh no, it's a woodpecker.
Yeah, they're just two different types of birds, aren't they? But it's the petals, the flowers. We both had the same one, so we were both building it, and I was thinking, have we got the same objective? But what it was the pink ones were worth 3 each, and then the other two colours were worth 1 and 0, and they were swapped round. So the primaries, we were building a ton of them because we were like, yeah, this is great. And I sort of clocked after we built one together. I was like, oh, Davey wants this as well. But then I hadn't clocked that he was also trying to build more of the yellow flowers, I think it was, and I was trying to build more of the blue ones, just for those extra little points. So yeah, a really good abstract game of that type.
Nice,
well implemented, good quality as well. I thought the pieces looked, for sort of it's not the most expensive game in the world. I thought they did a good job of getting value out of it and making it a good bit of art, good bit of quality.
It's quite nice having that objective where we're both scoring the bigger one together, though, because you're doing the stuff together then, and you're actually working towards the same objective for a little bit, and you start to think, wait a minute, something's not right here. But yeah, it was very enjoyable.
And then we went and actually had a look at the Golden Demon stand, because Golden Demon was being held at Essen SPIEL this year, and by all accounts they might be holding it there next year, from what I'm hearing. But it was, having done Warhammer fests and stuff in the past, they were called Warhammer Games Day Games Workshop Games Days when I first went to them. Having gone to those in the past with Golden Demon, it sort of took me back a little bit to when I used to go off and just spend hours staring at cabinets of really nicely painted miniatures. And the cabinets weren't quite as full this year as I've remembered in previous years, but there was still some really stunning models painted up, and really nice to see it kind of to one side of Hall 1, sort of out of the way, but where a lot of people would have to walk through to get between the halls. So lots of people could sort of see it, and you could sort of see it was a bit of a, I think even for people who weren't miniature painters, kind of caught their eye, and let's go and have a look at that.
And then I think the first set of painkillers wore off for Adrian, because suddenly you were in a lot of pain, and I quickly had a look at the map that we were luckily standing next to, and then there was a big heart with a line, like a lightning bolt through it. And I thought, okay, let's try there for first aid. So we had to walk around the back. It felt like we were just going into the back
staff area.
The staff area. Just kind of walk through. And
it's because that symbol is defibs.
Yeah.
And I only realised that afterwards. That's where the defibs were being kept, but not the first aid area. But they sorted us out.
Well, It ended up being it was on the door on this. There was the security. It was like the main frame where all the security had all of their CCTV and everything else, and they called first aid for us. And they came along, asked if I was okay. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's Adrian." And then those two guys, one of them was there just to make jokes. I swear, that's all he did.
First thing he said was, "I don't know very good English," and then absolutely ribbed me for like 10 minutes straight in really good English.
Yeah. He kept going, "No football for you, no football for you," and I just said, "I think this is the wrong event."
Yeah.
But yeah, they then called another two guys who came over. So Adrian now had 4 men tending to his foot, and and then. It took quite a while. They kept wanting to take you to the hospital.
They were desperate to get me in
maybe should have done.
And take me to hospital for a scan. And and you're like, it's probably the right thing to do, but I do not want to have to deal with medical insurance. And I've been walking around okay up to now. Like, I'll risk it. Like, let's risk it. And rather than sort of waiting till the very end. But today I've been and I've had it scanned and all that lot, and it's okay, apart from the fact that it's very sore and my whole foot now is basically varying shades of blue or purple. Literally, sort of from my toes, the back of my toes, all the way sort of to the top of the ankle is now blue or purple or red, or it's pretty rough, and it does hurt a lot still. But
you did walk on it for quite a while afterwards. That would mean, what was this? The Friday.
This was the Friday, and I did 5 hours. I worked out every day on it still on the Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday as well.
That's a lot for a foot that's healthy, let alone one that's badly sprayed.
I was, and I knew that it was. I knew how many it was because I've been doing this Harry Potter walking challenge thing, and it tells you how many miles you've walked every day. And I was like, oh, look, another 5 miles today on a ropey foot, but I wasn't missing Essen SPIEL. Told you, stubborn. So
yeah. And then the one paramedic showed the others, because first of all, he said, "Oh," I'm pointing to the guy making all the jokes, "He'll wrap your foot." Walked away. Then they called him back over, and the one guy had to show the other 3 how to wrap a foot. And then he wrapped your foot, and then off we went back into the hall.
Got some more painkillers off Davey, and off we went. To be fair, I say off we went. I walked around for another half hour and then said, you know what, I don't want to do any more damage. I'd rather rest it for a day and see if it'll be better tomorrow or the day after than give it any more gyp today while it's also fresh, which I think was the right choice in hindsight. So I left. I just hobbled back to my room.
Well, I was unbeknownst to all
and
of
left
this.
you guys to
I was on shift, wasn't I? I was demoing.
Yeah.
And then I locked off and then caught up with you both, and you went, "Yeah, I'm off home." And I was like, "Oh, right." And you pointed down to your foot, and you had all of this, like, it's been taped up or whatever, it's wrapped up. And then I learned about all of the shenanigans that you've been talking about. I thought, oh, no. But yeah, absolutely the right call, mate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I ruined you.
I know, I kind of say I don't know how you feel, but I've obviously was in so much pain one expo that I had to go home, and I hated it.
Listen to your body.
I know you're... So we were down one. We met with a JP, and we kind of had a little bit of wonder, but we had a time schedule where we had to go meet up with Mindclash and have a chat and kind of sort out something we'll talk about later. So we went and played a card game called Eternitium. I'll let JP talk about this one.
So I knew nothing about this. Davey's like, "Oh, follow me," and I just come off, a demo, and I was like, "I'll just itching to, play some games, really." So I was like, "Yeah, cool." And then the guy said, "Yeah, it's about time travel," and I was like, "Ooh," because I've got a little time travel fetish anyway. So I was like, "I'm interested. What's going on?" So it's kind of it's not kind of. It is a deck building game where you're kind of using portals to advance through your deck of eras, and each era has a portal shape of circle, square, triangle, and diamond, and you're kind of playing cards from your hand to advance through these portals to get to this gem, which is sat on your little player board at the back. So when you ever get to the gem, you fix time or whatever, and you win. And it sounds really, really simple, because it kind of is, but you have equipment that you can kind of purchase as well as part of your turn that kind of helps you do that. But the rub of the game is, like, your first era card is face up. So it's like a circle, and you're like, wow, easy. when you kind of shuffle your deck and you draw your cards, your hand of 5, you got a circle in there, happy days, but you always draw a portal card every turn. So that first one is easy to sort out. Now the rest of them are all face down, and that's where the fun begins, because you need to start using equipment to flip those cards up, and all of the equipment does kind of different things, either draw more cards from your deck, able to trash from your deck, reveal hidden cards, which might give other players the ability to reveal their cards. And it's a race, basically, to clear that era deck and get to the bottom. The purchase in there, to purchase more cards is quite cool, because you use time, essentially, to buy cards from the shop. And you kind of have a standard and advanced kind of equipment that you can go for. So the standards are cost 1 era, and the advanced cost 2. So you're really putting more era cards into your deck for the more powerful abilities that you want. So you've got to balance, not getting too much stuff and end up with that era deck getting too unwieldy, because the more of that you've got, it takes longer to get through, and other players are trying to find routes that are efficient to clear that down. Now, you can always take a bit of a punt as a push your luck mechanic in the game, where and you can kind of deduce this over time if you kind of start to see some of those era cards with the shapes on. But yeah, you can always take a punt on play a square card, portal card, and then you reveal, and if it's a square, happy days, you carry on. But if it's not, you kind of crap out and you end your turn, discard your hand, and then you draw 1 less card the next round. So it kind of penalises you for getting it wrong. But yeah, we got taught this game in, again, it's like the other game you mentioned before. We got taught in 4 minutes or something, and it made sense. There's not a lot to it, but I found it quite fun to play, actually. It surprised me. So yeah, so that was kind of the brief overview of the game, and just making a note that you might be picking up some background noise, because in the UK right now, we are in quite a torrential downpour. And it is what it is, guys. So if you can hear some lovely rain in the background, apologies, but there it is. That's the UK. It's great. We're back. But yeah, Davey, what did you think? You obviously you clocked this game at the press event, right? And it's something you were quite keen to try.
Yeah, it looked nice and easy to pick up, but it had a unique mechanic in there, the whole purchasing time, and also the eras being your win condition. I quite liked. So obviously you're purchasing ones. You also know what those are, so you might want to put those into your deck as well. So there is some sort of manipulation of what you're picking up into what cards you're then getting as your portals. So because you're skewing the odds of what's in your deck once you know you've got rid of X, Y, and Z. So there is randomness there, but there is a little bit of luck. But there's also you can work out as well. I did get lucky in the game we played with Adrian later, where I completely lucked out my last 2 cards. But sometimes you do in these games, and just blasted through it and won. But I did enjoy it for what it is. It's just a lightweight kind of filler game.
Like 20, 30 minutes, right?
To describe it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the lightest weight, I think, deck builders I think I've ever played. I think, to your point, it's a bit too much luck for me. You pick a card at the start, and then that makes your hand 6 cards, and you draw 5. So I didn't draw my upgrade card. And so I felt behind from turn 1, because you were both several eras ahead of me by the end of turn 1. And I'd done nothing wrong, sort of thing. All I'd done was shuffled badly. So that felt a little bit on the tough side for me. But I think if you can accept that level of luck, and you just want, as you say, a quick light pick me up game, the artwork is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. The teach is quick. As you say, the purchasing of eras is nice. I just felt a little bit hard done by on my game, because I still had 4 cards left to go. And I was already 2 cards behind at the end of turn 1, and all because I shuffled the bonus card you get and left it in the deck, because you get 6 cards at the start. 1 is your bonus tech, and then you draw 5. And I just felt behind from that. So, as well as the pushy luck bit, where I think, Davey, you got every single one of yours on the push your luck.
Yeah, it is pretty much.
And I didn't get any of mine. So a little bit too much luck for me, but I think for the speed of game it's forgivable.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people will enjoy this one.
It's not like you're playing an hour game or something and you're screwed from the start. It's over.
Again, if you want, it's one of those.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed it a lot actually for a light game. So yeah. So after that, we did our little meeting with Mindclash, and then we kind of boogie on down further down the hall to play a game that Davey was very, very, very keen to be playing. He kept mentioning it pretty much all day, walking up and down past this stall just to see if we could get on. So we managed to queue up. And Davey, what did we play?
So this is Endeavour Deep Sea. This is the third version. The first one called Endeavour. The second one was Age of Sail. And this one is called Endeavour Deep Sea. So Age of Sail, I've heard, is a really good game. I didn't even realise there was one before that until Paul told me when I was talking about it. But yeah, Age of Sail, really good game. I heard loads of good things, but they always said the end game sometimes was a bit feel bad because it was negative interaction where you load your cannons and then you'll have like a cannon fight at the end and people lose points and suddenly you can have this point swing and someone else will win. Whereas with Deep Sea, they've kind of gone away from that, and it's more about the exploration and deep sea diving. So you have this little kind of submarine, and you're still laying pucks out or discs out and doing actions with these discs and gaining certain things onto your player board. But you've also got this kind of deep sea exploration going on as well. The concept of the game is action selection, and with a little kind of it's not really tableau. You get some kind of like worker placement cards that you get to put out, which you then get to activate. If you upgrade these cards, you get the puck back, the disc back from the top of the card. So you can time these upgrades quite nicely, and then you have like a little upgrade board, which is your player board, where you have at the top, I think it was the amount of worker cards you can select at the start of the round. The second one was the amount of pucks you would gain as income. The third one was the amount of pucks you could take off your cards, which I really underestimated that one for mine. And the fourth one was how deep and how many submarines you could go. So it had this little kind of exploration side where you'd lay tiles out. If you did a sonar action, you could lay tiles out. And on these tiles, it had lots of different effects. Like you could go research, I think, which was like turtles on there, where you could go down and explore that. Or it had folder icons on there, which was another deck at the top, which would give you certain benefits, usually upgrade your board or suddenly flip one of your workers. But I just really liked it. It felt really satisfying to do all these little actions. And I really liked the deep sea theme. For me, maybe it's because I played Aquamarine on the way there as well. I was already like, yes, do some diving, guys. I was just into it, and I think it worked really well. We played with another chap who had played Age of Sail before, and he seemed to be really enjoying this new version of it as well. So, you also, with these cards, which you'd be getting from doing your file action, other players would also be getting benefits as well, depending on how strong the card was. So there was always something going on. The downtime was minimal. The turns flew round and we were getting stuff done. And we played, I think, one whole round, which was like 3 actions each.
Something like that.
Well, not 3 actions, but 3 whole
or
sequences. Yeah. So, yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. And I thought, I'll pick it up. And I looked at the price and I thought, oh no, it's 85 euros, I think, there. And I thought that's a bit too expensive. Looked online, it was 71 at home. So I was like, I'll pick it up at home. Of course, the next day I checked online and it's sold out. So good luck. Well, good luck getting it, I guess. So I'll have to get it in the next reprint, but it's definitely one I'm going to pick
up. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that demo. It was really well done as well. The guy teaching was obviously quite experienced, and it all just made sense very quickly, like what you were doing. And, he made sure that we drafted those, not drafted, but we picked those worker tiles, different ones, so that we can kind of see what they do, all the level 1 ones. And yeah, by the time we did a round, it was like, right, okay, makes sense. And you were off and just like exploring the deep sea. I always like those tiles as well. So like the further deep that you go, the more complexity it adds to the tiles and what's going on. So, the top ones were just like, get a thing. Okay, great. But some of the bottom ones, like 4 deep, there's all sorts of weird shenanigans going on with big octopuses and all sorts.
Yeah.
It was cool. Yeah. And actually, I'm not a massive fan of the theme. Like, it's okay for me, but it's quite cool. It's actually like marine biology kind of vibe rather than submarines firing torpedoes at each other. So it's a change of pace, which is good.
Yeah, it was nice. And I like the depth comes in with the worker purchasing. Everyone will have a different like action selection board in front of them in the end, because they all have different workers, and depending on what they want to be doing, what you want to be doing. So I think that the complexity comes with that. And because there was I think it was four columns by like 6 rows or something, or maybe like 5 rows of different workers. So there's quite a few there. And a load of them give you a purchase bonus as well. So you're like, oh, I want the purchase bonus off of that, but I don't really want to do the action. Or there's some good decision space there, along with quite an easy teach, which will sit nicely. I don't think I've got a lot of games like that. A lot of games I usually have are like really complex or quite light. So having something that kind of sits in the middle for me really appealed.
I think, was that it for the Friday day in the halls?
Yeah, I think we decided to go back and play Shackleton Base.
So we came back, caught up with Adrian, who'd I think had a nice rest, or as best rest as he could, doped up on
elevated foot.
Yeah, elevated foot, all of that. Managed to get some lukewarm ice from somewhere, maybe.
Doing the old Declan.
The Declan Rice.
Rice, rest, ice, compression, elevation.
And
you guys went off and got me some Mr. Chicken. Was it Mr. Chicken?
Got some Mr.
Chicken.
And we had that, and we played
Eternitium.
Yeah, we played Eternitium, and then Shackleton Base finally hit the table. So Davey wanted to he kept going, should we play Shackleton Base on the night before in the pub? And I'm so glad we didn't. 1, I was dead, and 2, there wouldn't have been enough space on that table to play it. Just not a chance in hell. No. So for those that don't know what Shackleton Base Journey to the Moon is, it's been getting quite a lot of buzz on the pre-Essen kind of lists that everyone's been doing. And really, it's another space game, which is kind of my jam. I like space games. I love the themes, sci-fi, all that kind of stuff. And for me, it brings in this modular nature that we're kind of seeing a lot. I'm not saying I've seen a lot. I've seen in 2 games, but it might be that it's in others as well. But this modular nature where you have 7 corporations in this box, and you play with 3 of them at a time, and they inject different flavors of cards, projects, and some changes of rules and things like that, and really adds to the variety of the game and how it's going to play out. So really, the game's all about you're getting these astronauts on a shuttle that you draft at the start of the game, and that determines your player order. And then on that shuttle, you have 3 different colors of astronauts, which are like yellow engineers and red technicians and blue scientists. And obviously, you get different denominations of those depending on what you pick. And then you use them to do various different actions on the Shackleton base. So basically, the Shackleton crater is on the moon, for those that don't know, hence why it's called Shackleton Base. And you are building domes and workshops and laboratories, and ultimately you can build your headquarters as well, which activates your enhanced player power. And you're kind of building these things and expanding kind of on the board, and where you kind of place those buildings is super important. Probably didn't appreciate that on my first play, but it is super important. Kind of which kind of row you want to put that in, and you've got freedom to build wherever you want, really, in terms of the sector, but you can't have the same building of your color in the in the same sector. So you can only have one of them in each sector. And each sector has space for a 1, 2, or 3 size building as well. So it kind of forces you to spread around a bit anyway. So you can build domes, which is all good. You can research projects. And one of the things I quite like about that is you have to check the power requirement of the base. So you have this shared power resource kind of tracker on the board as well. And that has to be above a certain level for you to fund a project, because you're going to drain power from the base by doing it. But when you build buildings, you can build solar panels as well as other actions, but you can basically invest in solar panels for the base, and you get rewarded in reputation for doing that, which is all good because that's a separate track. You can go up and get lots of lovely benefits. I really like that kind of mechanic of you can fund those solar panels, even if you don't need them, but you get the reward, but then other people can kind of use them to build where they need. And it's a little bit of, it's not even cooperative, but it's like, someone doing something can kind of help you fulfill an action that maybe you wouldn't be able to do. So that's kind of funding projects, and then you've got like these corporation actions which are littered across the 3 corporations, as well as kind of on the reputation track and other areas as well. So you can kind of do 3 of those, and away you go. So that's kind of the main kind of premise. But what's really cool about it, one of the things I really like, is that around the edge of the crater there are little worker placement spots where you can put those astronauts. And they're all pointing to the different rows. If you can kind of imagine a bunch of hexagons arranged in a circle, and then around the edges, you've got every arrow pointed to every row that exists, and they have different denominations of credits that you'd have to kind of fund depending on certain situations. And that's kind of how you get your core resources. So titanium and rare earth are like the 2 base core resources that you're going to need. And they're always in short supply, and you always need lots of them, because to build buildings, you need them. To build solar panels, you kind of need them. And to do anything, you're going to need them. So depending on the color worker you place on the edge will depend on whether you're getting these base resources, or whether you're getting money, or whether you're getting or activating these corporation tokens, which sit in the cross section of 3 hexes, basically. And they all represent the 3 different corporations on the board. And I love that mechanic of you put the guy on a 1 credit space and you activate the entire row. And we did get a rule wrong on this, but now we kind of understand how it works. But you activate the entire row. Where you have a presence in your building, you get the benefit for free, regardless of size. If you're there, you get it, no problem. But for every other space that you don't have presence there, you then pay the one who has the biggest building in that sector the amount of credits that you're stood on. So, one for Davey, one for Adrian, etc. So you kind of see this economy of credits flowing around the players, which is quite nice, because that can mean the difference if you go, I can afford to do the project, or I can afford to do this. So you get that nice flow. You kind of all working sort of together, but you're not, because you're all trying to do your own thing. And I really enjoyed this game. I thought I would, because of the theme, and I've been hearing a lot of good things. But I've really, really enjoyed my couple of plays of Shackleton, and just the different corporations that we've played. 6 of them now, right, Davey? So we've done pretty much most of them. The variability that they bring in the feeling of the game and what you're doing, the base ones. I'll just cover the base ones because I'll let people discover the other ones in the game. You've got one that's around getting astronaut tourists that you need to put them on tours around the base, and they can kind of fill in your kind of worker spots on your base board as well, which is not something I mentioned, but they kind of get in the way, but you need to kind of then get them there and then send them on tours. And you've got another corporation. It's all around getting resources and helium off the planet and basically shipping it back to Earth. And then you've got one that's around researching specimens, and you need different combinations of specimens to basically research things for this science company. And the others just level it up. Like there's one in there that was just a genuine like surprise, and it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. This is cool. And it's just awesome to see. But the combination of them being mixed is just going to create a different game experience every time. So yeah, loved it.
It was definitely up there for one of the best games I played at the convention. It was just, for me, it has real nice design space if you can't do everything, which means your decisions really matter. Of do I want to be doing this, or do I want to be doing this? The scoring aspect, where you can only ever score on one corporation and then you go down, means that sometimes you want to dip a little bit into one corporation and a lot into another, or do I want to go a lot into this one, but then someone else might choose that one. And I found this game actually really shines at 4, which is not something I'd normally say, but with a 4-player, it was just, there's a lot of contention there, and the board fills up. So you've also got a lot of ways to get resources, strangely. So it kind of opens up a lot of other avenues. But yeah, I really want to play it again.
I just keep wanting to play it. So I want to try all of the combinations of the corps, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, the unique cards which give you a unique small engine as well for the projects is just, it's a really nice design space, because usually you'd have cards which aren't tied to the corporations as well, which are just your generic deck. But they were just like, nope, your engine's going to be built just off of these corps alone, and that's it. So it really had some hard decisions in, which felt good.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I was the opposite end. I think this was my worst game of the convention. It's never easy to teach from the rule book, which is what we basically did, right? So that's never easy. So that doesn't help. But it was full of what I'd call microtransactions, where it was like, I've got to spend this little bit, then I've got to spend this little bit, then I've got to spend that little bit. Or I get to do this because it's worker placement, right? Mm-hmm. So you get 6 workers around. Yep. There's 3 rounds. You've essentially got 18 turns. And I think every single time the 3 of us had a turn, someone realised they'd not spent a resource or not gained a resource or had done something wrong. So I feel like in a game that had 18 turns, we had at least 18 rewinds, or I think I've forgotten this, or I've done that. And it's a game that, unfortunately, I think that's a sort of a symptom of that kind of game. And it's something I'm sort of finding less and less. I have less and less time for that in games now, where there's so many like little bits to remember that are not necessarily they're noted somewhere, but it's not like a big part of your turn. It's, I've bought this card. Oh, I get this resource if it's in the top corner, or if I've put the right worker here, I get this bonus, and it's printed at the end of a long track. And people were just forgetting it left, right, and centre. We were having to remind each other constantly about stuff, and it felt like it took forever, that game, I'll be honest, to me personally. So that, and the fact that I feel like there's low asymmetric bonus tiles, your person, your astronaut. And you guys used yours so much. No. Mine was 1 credit reduction on one of the however many spaces. So JP used his at a couple of critical times. Davey basically built his entire base using his benefit. I saved 5 credits across the game. And I was like, and I know that on the first turn, we didn't know how important first player was. I ended up last player. And it meant that all the bonuses I'd get for saving stuff with the small amount of money you have, I just couldn't use. So it was over plays, you'd probably learn, if I've got this person, I'll need to get first turn because I need to make use of it, right? You'll probably learn that a little bit, but from a first turn to literally watch you guys using your player powers at really opportune moments or making so much of your base, and I just saved 5 credits, which on the grand scale of thing is nothing. I think you must probably see about 50 or 60 credits across the game.
I do think, because I had JP's power the next game we played, and I used it twice or once all game.
But it might have been twice. Yeah.
I used it once. I upgraded my HQ, and the problem with JP's power I found was if you're efficient, because basically you can change any color action worker to anyone you want.
Get out of jail
but if you're efficient,
for the additional resource, isn't it, or whatever? Because especially around the edge where the color of
it really matters.
It really matters. It's just 2 credits and you get exactly what you need. So it's real critical turns. I never sat there with 0 credits where I couldn't afford.
I used it once. Yeah. I never used it again. I used it once all game. I never used it again, and I still won, but I felt the powers on the back loads better on every single one of them. The B side, I think every single one of them, they felt like they had more impact in the game, because I did feel like the credits one was really strong, because you can substitute, and then the one of the players next to us, he had one where he could always just only spend 1 to do any of the outside actions, and that seemed exploiting the creator, which seemed really strong. But it still kind of balanced out though during that game. But I do feel the powers, most of the B sides did look better, and maybe someone will prove me wrong with I just felt like I never needed the change. I did it once, and maybe that once was enough.
I know JP used his at a real opportune moment where he was like he was left with 1 worker that was the wrong color, and it set up. It was his last turn. It set up his next turn massively, and I thought for 2 credits, get out of jail, get yourself set up perfectly was fantastic. Whereas saving 5 credits across a game where you see 10 times that volume was just a bit like. But that wasn't. You know what? The odd off asymmetric power is not enough to put me off the game. No. It was how often we rewound a turn, or had to go and get something, or don't forget this, or don't forget that, or it happened so many times.
It was a first play.
I know, but
yeah, it didn't happen. The second game, it didn't happen.
It's fair enough, but for a first game, that was so off-putting. It felt like it doubled the amount of time the game took to keep doing all these rewinds, and I've forgotten this, no, I've forgotten that, and there's some nice things in there, like, don't get me wrong, but it really dampened that game for me. I think if you're someone like me who doesn't like these like little chain reactions that each costs a thing and gives you a little reward and all that lot, and you've got to keep track of them all, and which order you've done them in and stuff like that, I think where I'm sort of wearing thin on that, I think it's one of the bigger games that does that, short of a Lacerda.
Fair enough. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I think.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I think it will be popular. I think a lot of people will like it, but yeah, just my experience of it was that it was not a lot of fun, if I'm honest.
Fair play. And then we finished that up. I think you said, "Ta-ta, my foot's hurting again. I'm off the bed." And we thought, let's play a nice light game. So Davey had managed to pick up Unconscious Mind. And the guys next to us were already playing it while we were learning and playing Shackleton. So we just thought, you know what, there might be an opportunity here to get a teach on Unconscious Mind. So we thought, let's just give it a go.
We got taught Unconscious Mind while we were probably pretty unconscious ourselves. And we unknowingly played a good variant that I like to call Too Freud, Too Furious, because there's a little ink pot in it, and that ink pot, as it moves around, gives you kind of these chain actions which you build onto a player board, which can, a lot of it's resource conversion, a lot of it what we saw is resource conversion. There is a lot more, but we didn't shuffle the tech deck because we thought, we'll just put it out. We don't know what it's on. What's on a load of them, we'll just put them out. Yep. We should have shuffled it. And we played it as if when you move this ink pot round, you get all of the chain actions off of it. And this grid is a 4x3 grid that you can chain down a column, and you can chain along. It might be 3x3. Sorry, is it 4x3?
I think it's 3x3.
It's 3x3, 3x3, and you can basically chain off the row or chain off the column. And we were doing it so when this ink pot moved through, we chained off all of it. And your turns became this space. You were just trying to work out, like, if I run this here and run that there. And it did speed up the game because obviously we were moving this ink pot all the way around. And we also played another rule wrong where every time it went round, Freud walked forwards one step as well, whereas actually you just score your rep. So Freud was flying up the track. We were flying round our track, doing everything. And it became this... I just started seeing equations, I think. That was it. It was just equations while you're trying to math out what resources were neaded. So I should explain the concept of the game. What's the premise? So you're playing as psychotherapists? Yeah, well, they were doing that. They were doing very, very kind of nuanced theories and practices during that time, and a lot of it was like analyzing dreams. And this whole premise is you're one of the characters, Freud, and I cannot remember the other three. And you have clients that come in and you've got to cure their issues or their problems through their dreams or their kind of psyche. And you do this by getting certain intentions. I think each intention has kind of, it's like an emotion attached to it. And you have to get the right set and pay all of those so that you can get rid of some of these dream cards that sit above your client, and eventually it will clear their gloom. And when their gloom's cleared, you get a power on the client that you can then get. And then once you clear them completely, you get the card and you can slot it under your board, which then gives you the same effect, but also give you scoring, and it will also give you another client. First time you clear gloom, it also frees up another space. And you do this by going to actions on there's like a work placement board. On this work placement board, there's a variety of actions that also move your ink pot. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's too many to mention. But there's also another board where you move around and has an area control kind of segment on it where you follow Freud around and you can do certain actions from being on the main board. And then depending on what certain symbols you've got from either publishing works or clearing certain clients or playing certain cards, you can get some area control that goes on. And it's actually better to split your area control because you score more by going all the way around the town. So quite a complex game, lots of moving parts. I didn't enjoy my first playthrough of it, but I think that was mainly because we were doing the Too Freud, Too Furious version where it was just too much calculations, especially at that time. Jesus. But luckily we played the fast version because we finished it within 2 hours and everyone was like, "Oh, you played that quick." It was like, yeah, we just knew what we were doing, didn't we?
We realised this does not feel right. There's something janky and wrong in this game, and I think it's us. So, tiredness and Essen and things like that.
So we were gifted this by Fantasia Games. So thank you to them. Looking forward to getting it to the table. I'll probably try and get it down to the table this weekend coming and get a proper playthrough of it. Because that night when I went back, I pretty much got the rule book up and read all the rules and sat there and went, I played this wrong. Played this wrong. Because it was really nice of the guys next to us to give us a teach. And, kudos to them. But us taking the rules in at that time as well was probably not the best idea, but we played most of it right. So it did make the rule. I understood the rule book a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I find me learning the game if I sit down and play it. And even if I've got a slightly broken play, I can see where the rules interact and kind of where to go from there. So it does help me.
Yeah. For me, again, it's Fantasia Games production. So like Endless Winter, they did. And they have very modular boards of just things everywhere. And that, it might be the way we laid it out and just the way we put it out on the table, because we were restricted on width. It's kind of a long table, not very wide. But I always struggle a little bit when you've got a bit over here on the left, and there's a bit over here on the right, and there's a bit here, and there's a bit there, and you're trying to parse that information and pull it all together. Like for me, I just prefer if it's all on one board. It's just easy for me to kind of contain it. But I have to say the production on this thing is bloody fantastic, and they do fantastic productions. You know, the player board, the ink pot that you move around it reminds me of the villainous tokens that you move. And I am looking forward to playing it properly. So I'm going to reserve judgment on this because it's unfair to kind of say, well, do I think this will be good or not? From my perspective, I'd like to play a proper game, proper set, proper rules, and let's not go too furious. Let's just play the first one, see how it is, and hopefully it will be a good fun. The theme's cool though. The theme's unique, and
I love the
clear
theme.
cards, haven't you? I like those clear cards that has the gloom, sits on top of the patient, so it kind of overlays certain information and adds like these green hearts on, things like that. So I
think it's the best looking Euro I've seen. In my personal opinion, the artwork, Vincent did one half of the artwork. Vincent, the same one, did Canopy Evergreen. So Vincent,
the trait.
There we go. Thank you. And it's just amazing. It looks beautiful, and I really like the theme of Freud and the whole psychoanalyst as well. They've just done a real good job of the little dream cards that come up. They're just weird and wacky, some of them. And it's a beautiful game. I just want to play the proper version of it.
That was the end of Friday, right? So let's change pace a little bit and talk about, we spent 5 days or whatever it was with each other. We've all got to know each other a little bit better. So the question I'm going to ask is, what is something we've learned about ourselves while we're away? And what is something that we've learned about each other while we're away? So I'll go first, just to give you guys a bit of thinking time, because I can see there's a bit of chin scratching going on there. So the thing I learned about myself is how much I love a walk-in shower. So we got...
It's true.
We got upgraded to this disabled room with the wet room in it. And I don't typically like shower cubicles like the little ones you get at home. So quite often I have a bath instead of a shower quite regularly. But having a walk-in shower for a morning is just such a nice experience. Just turn on, have a shower, get yourself sorted for the day, have a sing, off you go. I just loved it. So what did I learn about JP? I learned about JP that he cannot accept silence in the world.
That's very true.
If there is a silent 2 minutes, I'm either getting the Family Guy, meh, 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 whatever it is. Or, so there's a drink in Germany called Mezzomix, which is basically cola and Fanta mixed 50-50 in a bottle.
Weird.
And if you buy it from Lidl, you get the knockoff version, which is called
Schwip.
And JP will say that 7 times a day once he's realised that's what it's called, just to fill the time.
Yeah. I do this though, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's I've learned this about myself. I already know I do this thing, but I kind of anchor onto things, especially when I'm away, right? When I'm kind of away on an event, holidays or whatever, there's just something that burrows into my brain, and it's stupid things, does like Schwip, right? It's just a brand name. So it's a cheaper brand name of a drink, and I don't know, it just kind of burrows in there. I'll just keep repeating it because I just find it funny. So it's obviously something that tickles me, and I'll just keep saying it over and over until it pisses people off. I did it on holiday. Rob will tell you the same thing. When me and Rob and our wives, we go away, and I'm in the middle of Universal Studios in Harry Potter land. I'm just spouting off absolute Harry Potter bollocks. Just because I'm in Harry Potter land, and then I move into Jurassic Park world, and it's just I can't help it. I think it's like
you're in the middle of a packed, silent train in Germany that's absolutely packed, and he's there singing Russ Abbott's Atmosphere because he's got it stuck in his head from earlier.
It's brilliant. What a song.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like everyone's clearly awkward by this. And JB's like, nah, I'm having fun.
Yeah. It's like, what an atmosphere.
What I saw from Davey was, for the first time properly, I think, was a real paternal side. So say, obviously I hurt my foot, right, on the Friday. And from the Friday, when I hurt my foot, all the way through to sort of Monday morning leaving, it was, do you need a taxi? Do you need this to hold on to? Do you need some more meds? Do you need to go and sit down? All that kind of stuff. And I don't think you get a chance to see that off of people, but man, it was lovely just to be like, oh yeah, I do need to sit down now. Come on, lead me to a chair, like Nurse Davey. Come on. And it was just, yeah.
I wasn't wearing the outfit. I wasn't wearing the outfit. It's fine.
Only on one of the nights. And yeah, it's just like it just helped the weekend go a little bit along, and it's just not something I think you sit like, you know, we meet up to play games. Yeah. It's not often you get to see these sides of people until you spend several days back to back with the same three people, sort of thing, whatever. So yeah, so that's what I learned about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of go. I think learn about myself. It's really hard to kind of answer that, but yeah, I suppose talking about the incessant need to fill a void of silence is weird. I don't know why I do it, but I must be just because I just can't be quiet, or I just like to feel that maybe if I'm talking, it's I have no idea why I do it. But yeah, I think you calling out as well, and now I'm really like, yeah, maybe I just need to shut up a bit more. But that's cool. Yeah,
never change, mate. Never change.
I'm like 40 odd now. I will change. You know, you stuck with this. This is what you got. It's what you got, baby. So yeah, I can't really think of anything on that side. But I think what I've learned from you guys, I think you mentioned mine already, Adrian, is that I think out of all of the group, not all of the group, but out of us three that we went away, you're probably the person I know the least about. And just to have that opportunity to spend more time with you and learn a bit more about you, you know, your past and some things that we were chatting about that we've just never had the time to kind of really explore and chat through. And yeah, and the fact you're always the first out of bed, and he's in that shower and he is singing. He's singing, he's putting his tunes on, and he's having a great time for 20 odd minutes, singing all sorts of hits from the, you know, the noughties, the 90s, or whatever. They're going on. It's a party in that shower. And my showers just feel really boring. I'll just go in and just splash water around and then come out and go, "Ooh, that's great." But yeah, you
puts his step ones.
Yeah,
on.
You just
off he goes.
You're just having like a complete ball in there. It's like, I want that shower. Why can't I have that shower? So, but yeah, no, I think it's just generally that.
Surprised you didn't join him.
Yeah. I nearly did. But no, I mean, Davey, like, we weren't staying in the same hotel. One day we probably will share a room at some point, and no doubt. But, you know, we've talked about a few things. I think even on the last Essen trip, I started to learn more about you and your sordid past. And but yeah, no, I think, I don't know. I don't know what to say about you. Like, what have I learned more about Davey this time around? I don't know if I have. I don't think it's a bad thing, because
more of the same.
Yeah, it's more of the same. But Davey adds a nice dynamic to the group, because you can be chaotic, but you have that caring side, that massive, like, you know, you do care about people and things and what's going on, and not just because of what happened to Adrian's foot. Like, you generally will take other people's thoughts and things into consideration, which people might not realize about you when they kind of first meet you, maybe. So yeah, it's like it is definitely there, and you want to make sure you have a good time, and it's always a good time with you. It's like, you know, the fact that you're there playing games and we're just having a bit of banter across the table. God knows what we talk about half the time, but it's just like, but it's always fun. That's the thing. It's always fun. So yeah,
usually swearing at each other.
I love it.
Yeah. Most people usually call me a dickhead, and I don't know why. It's usually I don't know why. So what did I learn? What did I learn about myself? It's something I've probably forgotten rather than I learn about myself. And it's going to sound a strange one, but obviously I had Wednesday by myself. And I forgot how much when I'm by myself, I kind of sometimes go outside of my comfort zone. Whereas when you're with people, we kind of always fall into our comfort zone and our group, and we don't go outside of it that much. Whereas when I was by myself, you know, it was a bit more like off I go. Here we go. There's this chat around and people, let's chat to this person, let's chat to this person. So I think that's what I kind of forgot. And it's something I used to be better at and something I got worse at as I've got older. But then it was nice to have to be thrown back into that situation and do that. And that's obviously not saying I didn't enjoy the time with you guys, but it was just something I'd forgotten about myself. So that was a good thing. Stuff I learned about you guys would be, Adrian, the more I get to know you, the more I like you.
Thanks.
It's true. No, it's true.
That's right. That's a compliment in a lot of ways, though, isn't it?
True.
It's just I didn't know how to, because sometimes I didn't know how to take, because you can be, as you said yourself, you can be stubborn with things, and you've got a set opinion, but that isn't a bad thing. And I think it was basically the more I got to know you, the more I've understood that, and the more I've liked it. You know, you are yourself,
don't you?
And that's yeah, I do, yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's not, it's a compliment. I don't mean it in a bad way.
Oh, on to JP now before I get
gushy.
too embarrassed.
And JP is probably much of the same. We have spent a lot of time together now. I pretty much live around your house some weeks when you just put board games up. I probably could have just put a camp bed in your games room and just slept there, but you've got too much family stuff going on for that ever to be viable. So yeah, and just obviously we enjoy the same type of games, so we end up gaming a lot together.
Yeah, I think that's quite key. I've always realised that recently, actually, how mine and your tastes are very out of the whole group. Like ours are probably the most aligned in tastes, and even recently, like with Curly and some of the others who like their heavy games, we're kind of going on different paths in a way. We have our games like we join in. It's not like we don't see each other or game with each other, but in terms of our tastes and where we're heading after years and years and years and years of experiences, I've noticed that a lot more. So there you go, looping back to something I've learned about myself. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
That was a gushy moment, wasn't it? Ooh.
Yeah, it was. We got all emotional on the podcast.
So it'd be nice.
Cut it. I don't have emotions. I am
dead inside.
I am dead. Yeah, inside. Yeah.
No, that was good. I thought it'd be nice just to have a bit of a chat about something that wasn't just we wandered around and played board games, which is what this is for several hours, right? I thought just break it up a little bit.
Hey, so we ate meat and potatoes as well.
We ate a lot of meat and potatoes, various forms.
Various cuisines of meat and potatoes.
Yeah. So, with that said, this is the end of part one.
Part one?
That's it. This is the end of part one. So we will have a part two out where we talk about Saturday, Sunday, and sort of a bit of a debrief and how we felt and all that kind of stuff. So please tune back in for that. It's not going to be a week or 2 weeks. We're hoping. We think it's going to be up very shortly after this episode. So hopefully you've got a chance to listen to it separately or listen to it all like sort of back to back as well. So as always, thank you very much for listening. If you want to interact with us on our socials, please do. All in the show notes at the bottom in the description. Love talking to you guys. Even on the Essen socials that we've had up, you guys are interacting with us. And it's just great to hear a little bit of kind of what your experiences are, what you're playing. And we love hearing all that lot. So please do interact with us there. If you've got a few pennies, we have coffee, which allows us to do things like have good mics and improve our quality of editing and stuff like that, which hopefully, again, a few months ago now that we did a bit of an upgrade and spent a bit of money on an upgrade. And hopefully you guys are hearing that now. And that just allows us to continue to develop and push forward the podcast, which we're just thankful for those who do support us. So with that being said, the big question is, whose turn is it anyway?